Alright guys, so the Scathach Lotto event is in full swing. Just make sure you don't blow all of your apples during part 1 because the best notes do come for parts 2 and 3. But that's not all that's coming for this event. We actually have a raid up for Scathach who got 2 new things that I'm sure a lot of people are going to be interested in. Whether it's for waifu reasons and you really want to get her in that bunny outfit, or it's for gameplay reasons for her new incredibly good skill, or like me and it's maybe a little bit of both. But thankfully I already have Scathach, so I just gotta collect the new outfit and I'm good to go. But yeah, regardless, we're gonna talk about her today. She's got her new buff and everything. But before we actually get into the servant, if you haven't already, make sure you leave a like on the video and that you subscribe to the channel for that daily FGO content. And if you want to see me play the game live, I stream every weekday over on my Twitch around 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And we go for like 2 to 4 hours on average, somewhere in that time frame. But yeah, with all that being said, let's go ahead and start diving right into this servant, starting off with her hits. And you know, sometimes we talk about servants' hits and it's like, yeah, their NP gain is really good, just make sure you get crits, or this is going to be a really good star-genning servant. Scathach is actually one of those servants that you really have to pay attention to her hits, because she has this very weird way of getting her NP back. See, because of how high Scathach's natural NP gain is, and how high the hits on her buster cards are compared to her quick cards, it's actually better to do like an Arts Buster chain with Scathach to refund her NP. It's very strange, and if you've used the Berserker, you know, Summer Nobu, you may have experienced something similar, because Nobu is very similar because she also has very high buster hits. But it is something you're going to need to be looking out for, because while you can still refund pretty decent NP back on her quick cards, especially if you're using someone like Scotty, who's going to be giving her those massive quick buffs for numerous turns, this is still one of the better ways to get to Scathach's NP, because for some reason they were like, let's just go the double quick, double buster route, because back in the day that's kind of how they wanted to do Lancers. They wanted Lancers to be like double buster, double quick dudes. But that's like the actual main thing you got to know about Scathach. Like, more important than, like, you know, her actual NP gain stat, the star gen, even that insanely good extra attack that has 7 hits, which you guys know I'm absolutely loving. I mean, extra attacks being good is kind of my thing, so them giving me an absolute bomb wifey that also has a good extra attack, it's like a match made in heaven. But on a serious note, you do need to pay attention to those arts and those buster cards, because getting a crit on the arts card can be really good. But if you're someone that maybe hasn't used Scathach, maybe this is your first introduction to the character, that is one of the ways that you actually do refund a lot of her NP, just because her buster hits are so much higher than her actual quick cards. But of course, things are a little bit different because now Scotty is in the game. She's been in the game for quite a while, and she can kind of even the playing field a little bit, because she can, you know, especially with double Scotty, give you a 100% quick buff for 3 turns, and that is also going to increase the NP gain of your quick cards. But again, just something you should be aware of with her hits. It's actually really important for this servant in particular. But with that out of the way, let's mosey on over to her skills. And skill 1 might seem a little underwhelming. It's an 80% chance on 1 proc to give her a 50% crit damage buff for 3 turns, and then another 80% chance to give her 500% star weight for 3 turns, while also guaranteeing that she gets a dodge for 1 turn on a 5-turn cooldown. Now, for some people, they might be looking at the skill going, well, yeah, the effects are really good. I mean, 50% crit damage for 3 turns is literally the waiver crit buff, right? So hopefully that gives you some context to how strong this is. And the star weight is pretty good, combined with the fact that as a Lancer, her natural star weight's not insane. She's no Rider or Archer or anything, but it's still pretty decent. She's not going to lose out on stars, especially with this star weight buff for 3 turns. But those 80% procs, you know, if you've played FGO and you've gotten like an 80% crit or even a 90% crit, if it doesn't say 100%, it might as well say 10%. But I'm actually going to segue right into the second skill, because this is like one of the better buffs I've seen in a long time. When they first announced this on the JP version of the game, I'm like, they are trying to perfectly fix this servant, because this originally was just a targetable 50% quick buff, which was really good. It kind of made Scathach a pseudo DPS support, because back in the day, quick was absolutely starving for any types of supports. But when they buffed it, they gave it the ability that whoever you target the skill on, who is going to be Scathach 90% of the time, they're going to get that 50% quick damage buff, but then they're also going to get a 20% buff success rate And as you'll remember, those were 80% procs on her first skill, so this guarantees that her first skill will give you all of the buffs for 3 turns while this skill is up, and then it also gives her a 20% NP gauge, which, as you guys heard me talk about towards the beginning of this video, Scathach's a little bit wonky when it comes to her naturally refunding her NP on her own. You gotta do weird arts buster brave chains, and this is supposed to help alleviate those problems a little bit. It's supposed to give her her own way to kind of get to her NP, while also guaranteeing the effects on her first skill. And now when you look at these in conjunction, it makes Scathach an extremely powerful servant, because originally, if you didn't get especially the crit buff, it kind of turned Scathach into a one-pump chump. After you use that big, quick mana burst on your Scathach, she lost a lot of her damage. But at the very least, even though you're going to be losing this massive quick buff, you can still do really good crit damage on the following turns until you get this skill back. And it made Scathach a lot less useless after she fired her NP. Also, Scotty being in the game also helped her out dramatically because, well, Scotty would just dump 100% NP with the both of them into Scathach and let her fire her NP again, and, you know, also gave her more quick buffs and more crit damage. But this allows Scathach to also be pretty good on her own. And as you guys know, I prefer a servant to be good on their own already, so the supports aren't trying to fix that servant, they are elevating that servant to the next level. And these two skills combined already make Scathach insanely good. You know, she's just generally in most situations going to perform very well, but then the third skill gives her a lot of tech. It gives her a lot of niche utility. Well, I say niche utility, but it's 2 special damage mods, one of those being Divine, which, as you guys know, anytime we get like a Divine special damage mod, I'm telling you guys that it's really good because there's a lot of servants and random enemies and bosses that fall under this. But also, interestingly enough, a special damage mod against Divines. Now, unfortunately, these only last for 1 turn, but she does double dip into both of these. They are 100%, and the cooldown is relatively short on 5 turns. But why I say the Undead is interesting is that we just got a servant for Summer 7 that actually sticks the Undead trait onto the enemies. And you can use her in conjunction with someone like Scathach to force special damage mod on people to get even more damage. It makes setups like those really interesting. So just also something to maybe think about if you're playing on JP and you're watching this because you have your own Scathach, or if you're looking at this video as an NA player and maybe looking towards Summer 7, and it might be something you can like look forward to actually like, you know, taking advantage of, because, you know, those weird team comps are always really fun to use and everything. But overall, you have a very solid basis for Scathach between all 3 of her skills. You have some decent survivability and a 1-turn evasion. You've got 2 pretty good special damage mods, Divine being very good right now and Undead getting better with time because of, you know, the Summer Woo, being able to slap Undead on anybody. You've got good crit damage, good star weight, a nice little small battery. Unfortunately, it's not 30%, so you can't use it with the append skill to get to a fake 50% battery. The reason that would be really good is that Scathach has really high 1-turn damage, and if you could get her that fake 50% battery, she'd be really good for event farming. You know, anytime there's like a random enemy with like big HP, she could just nuke them and you could attack the next node with your usual farmer. But you could always use her with like K-scope or something, right? If that's really a trouble for you. But her NP actually makes her even better. And as we look at it, it's not because of the 1-hit or anything, you know, we don't care about that. The insta-kill, sure, it's nice, I guess, if you're using her for some type of farming, or you're fighting a silver enemy or something along those lines that you might be able to get the insta-kill on, or hey, maybe you're fighting a gold enemy and you get really lucky. The reason it's really good is that it has insanely high damage. It absolutely obliterates the enemy. I mean, Scathach is still only out-damaged by Enkidu, just to kind of like put into perspective how much damage she does amongst all Lancers, and as one of like the hardest hitting units in the entirety of the game. But it also has a 500% chance to stun the enemy for 1 turn. Now again, if you're new and you're like, why do I need a 500% chance? That pretty much is guaranteeing that you're going to stun whoever you smack the NP with. See, they do stuff like 500% chance because let's say it had a 100% chance and you attack some archer with 20% magic resistance, that chance is going to fall more to like an 80% chance. You know, you got to factor in like debuff resistances and stuff like that. But if you do 500%, you're pretty much guaranteed going to smack them with it, unless they just blatantly have like immunity to debuffs or they're stun immune or something like that. And that makes Scathach really insane. because it almost functions as another layer of survivability. Because if you're using, say, Scathach with double Scotty, you can chain a lot of her NPs together and just never allow the opponents to fire their own attacks at all, or just do anything. And it's not like there's really any downside to it, because Scathach just does so much damage that she can effectively just burst people down and never let them touch her at all, which I guess is fitting considering, you know, Scathach's lore and everything and how OP she is. But still, you can do a lot of really nasty stuff with Scathach over here. Wait, pause, get your minds out of the gutter. You guys know what I'm talking about. But overall, a very, very strong servant. I mean, her damage is very good. She still has the problem that, like, let's say you're using Scathach kind of by herself and you're not able to buff her a lot, that she will lose a lot of her damage after that first initial big turn. But again, there's also scenarios where you just need to do a lot of damage at once. I mean, I personally really like to use Scathach as like an anchor in some of my boss clearing setups, right? Because it might just be really nice to be like, all right, yeah, sure, we like wore this guy down and everything, but then last person comes in, it's Scathach, she nukes the enemy for like 500,000 damage, and they just never stood a chance. Stuff like that gets a lot easier, especially now that she has her own battery and whatnot. And she is definitely a servant that I'm not going to say you must summon for. I don't think she's quite that good, but she is really, really good. And I completely get if, like, despite all the servants that we're going to be getting this year, like for the rest of this year and kind of like early next year, if you want to summon and like dump a lot of Saint Quartz into Scathach, I completely understand that. She is disgustingly good. And it's funny, every time that I've talked about Scathach, it's like my opinion gets better and better the more I use the servant. She's one of those servants that like gets better the more you use her, right? Like the better you get at like utilizing the servant, the better she feels, right? Again, wait, pause, you guys know what I'm talking about. But yeah, it's even got me contemplating if I want to go for like an NP2 or something, even though I know NP1 is fine enough because, you know, again, she's going to nuke them into lower Earth orbit anyway, but still got me considering it. But let me know if this is a catalyst for you guys. I know people always say that, yeah, ZTL, your videos are a catalyst for me. I pulled 878 Scathachs in one singular ticket summon after watching 2 seconds of your video. So, you know, let me know all that in the comments down below. I always like getting to see the people that are like, oh yeah, I pulled the servant after watching your video. Just, I don't know, it makes me feel happy that videos are like a catalyst for some people. Just, I don't know, it's a good feeling. But yeah, with all that being said, let me know if you guys are summoning or if you're going to be continuing to save, all that good jazz. And with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. You guys have yourselves a nice day. Peace, late guys.